very quickly, the work on seed and on agriculture that we do is both to bring into the concrete the ideas of living in an earth democracy. For us, rights of nature is not something that's emerged today. It's the very basis of thinking of any culture that has survived over centuries. Yeah, they wouldn't be here if they didn't think that way. Anyone who's exploited the survival base in nature has gone. They're not here. And we are at that strange moment, and I'm so grateful to, I think you pointed out Spanish and Southern European experience, because we often ignore the fact that the world is collapsing and the survival of the human species is at stake.
Yes.
If we carry on the model. And the strange thing is precisely when the old model is collapsing, it's getting a new life. And that's the challenge we face everywhere. The brutality, the militarization, the criminalization is a desperation to hang on for a little longer.
Yes.
So the way we've defined living as parts of the earth, not its masters and owners, is through an earth democracy, through the practice of earth democracy, based on the three pillars of living economies, a transition to living economies from the killing economies, living democracies from democracies that are not working, and living cultures from every kind of culture that is killing our spirit, putting us in competition with each other, all the religious conflicts worldwide, everything. I'm not going into detail because 10 minutes you can't go into detail, but I'm sure the telegraphic analysis you'll figure out. So we've based our work on earth democracy, both on keeping the ancient wisdom and the larger vision as the guiding force, but then not hanging in the abstract, because that's the problem. Words have become the problem. We cling too much to words, and then we fight each other over words. So we bring it to, and I'm so grateful to the Daughters of the Corn for making us realize it's about life, it's not about rights. So, taking the context of life, we focused on seed freedom, food freedom, land freedom, water freedom, and the freedom of knowledge and the freedom of the mind. And in the land, of course, the forests are involved, the biodiversity is involved. And each of these freedoms is first a freedom of nature. So the seed freedom is first a freedom of the seed and biodiversity to evolve into the future. Because every aspect of biodiversity comes from seed. It could be a human seed, it could be an animal seed, it could be a plant seed, but it's eventually, seed is where life begins. Food freedom is the freedom of the food, because food is living. In our cosmology, food is the creator. And everything is expressed through food. And of course, that's the web of life. And you can do the science of it in terms of nutrient cycles. So I started this work 84 with the Bhopal disaster and the Punjab crisis, but it got accelerated in 87 because it happened to be at a meeting where the biotech industry laid its plan, and its plan was based on GMOs for owning life. There'd been other property, Randy pointed out about property, but this was a whole new property in life. Property in the rejuvenation of life, property in the reproduction of life. And I won't spend time, I don't have it, but just look at the cases. Look at Bauman versus Monsanto last year, where the Supreme Court ruled that, of United States ruled, that no matter how far down a seed has become grain, that too is owned by Monsanto. You can eat it, but you can't grow it. This farmer never bought seed from Monsanto, he bought it from a grain elevator. But why were they doing GMOs? They said it very clearly, to own life, because they couldn't suddenly say we own the seed. It's our intellectual property. And for this, they needed free trade treaties. That time it was GATT, which became WTO, and the Trade-Related Intellectual Property Rights Agreement of WTO is the takeover of life on Earth. because we had movements. I started that day to start saving seeds, 87. Movements grew everywhere. We worked internationally in solidarity, but concretely in our places, with the clear responsibility that that particular seed had to be saved. Most of the world is, contrary to the propaganda, still GMO free. Most of the crops are still GMO free, so they're desperate. And all new free trade treaties is to push that agenda, whether it's the Trans-Pacific Partnership or the new America-Europe thing, and I don't know how Uruguay is involved in it, but it is. So farmers can't save seed, farmers can't save biodiversity. Consumers can't have a choice what they eat, they can't know what they eat. And the two ballot initiatives of California and Washington are examples. So it is about freedom too. Freedom of life on earth, all species, all beings, freedom of producers, farmers, and freedom of all citizens having some kind of right. Now, we started to, besides saving seeds, and we've created more than 110 community seed banks, reclaiming seed as a commons and not intellectual property and private property. But we've also built movements globally. And about 2 years ago, we did a study. So, you know, there's only one study that comes out, and it's from the industry, always showing miracles, always showing expansion. So we said, let's work on the ground and see what's the real story. And at that point, we brought out this report. This is just the executive summary. And couldn't find a better title than this, The GMO Emperor Has No Clothes. Because it's being pushed. Now our next program, and I hope all of you from different parts of the world will want to identify the hands of the clappers. You see, that's what's holding this up. Even Korea will have 5 clappers who are telling him without GMOs, food security is impossible. They are working so hard, they're working overtime, the clappers, because their livelihoods are also at stake. Currently, and you know, in this study we found that 3 promises didn't work. GMOs didn't produce more, so this is not a solution to hunger. They were supposed to reduce chemicals in agriculture, they've increased chemicals in agriculture. And yesterday the Argentinian contribution mentioned how much the use of Roundup has grown for Roundup Ready soya. And the third was, it's a very smart technology. It's such a sloppy technology, it can't even control pests. And weeds, it's created super pests and super weeds. So at every level, it is a failed technology. How does a failed technology get a life as the biggest aggression around the world? That's what we have to address. Yeah? I'm not going to try and address it now, that's what we need to address in terms of the future. The latest, of course, is this amazing push. You know, they always invent. They've invented a Mark Linus who pretended to have been a founder of the anti-GM movement. Now they've invented a man who's supposed to be a founder of Greenpeace. And then they send them around the world with all the money available to talk to congresses, to talk to parliament, to undo GMO bans, etc. And the latest push is on something called golden rice. It's going to solve the problem of vitamin A deficiency. And it holds the new generation of biofortification that we need to leave the fate of our food in the hands of these corporations because only their technologies can solve it. So I just did a write-up and I'll just give you some figures. Golden rice produces 35 micrograms per 100 milligrams of rice. We have plants and crops, and every culture has them. If we go to the women in the Amazon, if we go to the daughters of corn, if we go anywhere in the world, we'll find hundreds of crops that provide vitamin A. And our indigenous crops that we eat on a regular basis provide 3,500% more. Yeah? More when you intensify it, and that's, I think, the real issue. What we found is industrial monocultures are actually highly unproductive when you look at the production of nutrition. So we started to measure the health per acre, the nutrition per acre. Just in vitamin A, we can produce 10,000% more than golden rice per acre. And in any aspect of food, if you start doing the homework, start talking to the grandmothers, if you start talking to the indigenous people, we realize that what we have is very sophisticated farming systems based on biodiversity being trashed by a highly crude system which is based on war, because every agrichemical comes from the war. Every agrichemical is a war chemical. And so it's about knowledge too. The other one, that Bill Gates is very fond of all of this, and he's pushing in Africa. But in Australia, this is work for you. Yeah? So there's a Mr. Dale he's financing, and then he's getting our government to finance an Australian scientist. And they want to put iron into banana. And banana has 0.44 milligrams iron. It has lots of other stuff, but not iron. And they want to double it and triple it. And again, it'll be 7,000% inferior to other sources of iron. And everywhere it's a spoof. Everywhere it's a myth. And we need to start being able to address this from all the knowledges we have in all our conditions. The Global Citizens Campaign that we started is basically trying to articulate the law of the seed as guided from the seed. On the one hand, you have patent law that's saying you can't save seed, it's the property of the corporations. But because they didn't win that game fully, they now are making all local indigenous seed illegal through new seed laws. Compulsory registration as well as UPOF, all based on uniformity. Uniformity becomes the imposition. Diversity becomes illegal. So what we've written, and this is available from the Navdanya website, even the Emperor's report is on the Navdanya website. We wrote a law of the seed. We brought together the top scientists who worked on protecting biodiversity. The person who headed the FAO, Plant Genetic Resources Division. Ceccarelli, who was the best plant breeder at ICARDA. And the lawyers have been fighting these cases of piracy, like the neem case and the basmati, all of this patenting. And we just said, how does seed really work? It works on diversity. It works on resilience. It works on quality and nutrition. It doesn't work on uniformity. It's just the wrong model. So if you take the guidance from the seed to write the law of the seed, it's a very different kind of law. And this law is now being used by groups and movements and parliaments everywhere to counter the claims of why there must be seed laws that ban diversity and ban seed in farmers' hands and ban all local seed, which makes all agriculture that's ecological impossible. They want to kill ecological alternatives through controlling the seed. And that's right in front of us. Yeah? Everything's on our side. Nature's on our side, knowledge is on our side, our practice is on our side, and I think it's time to stop being helpless and defensive. And I think you said it's time to occupy with love and generosity, but deep confidence and a deep resilience, as was articulated by our sisters from in Ecuador.